Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Perspective. We'll be talking about, of course, the incident, Jaffa Express incident that happened and its ramifications overall for security as far as Pakistan is concerned. Of course, the Prime Minister has strongly condemned the incident and also called for national unity at this time in the wake of such a huge incident for Pakistan. What efforts overall the nation needs to make with regard to ensuring that there is no breach of security, and of course we know that this incident was perpetrated by from across the border, the involvement there. We'll be talking about the ramifications of this kind of terrorism that continues to spew from that direction as far as Pakistan is concerned. Of course our forces remain resolved, and the kind of action that was seen by our forces during this very sad incident is of course a testament to our forces, their bravery and their skill, nothing less. We'll be talking more of this. I have with me AVM retired IJAZ Malik. Thank you so much for joining us today. We also have with us Lieutenant General retired Raza Khan. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go to IJAZ Sahab here. IJAZ Sahab, of course, this is a huge incident for Pakistan, not just for Balochistan, but overall for all of us, for Pakistan. And for those that lost their lives, those brave men who lost their lives during this incident, of course the whole nation stands behind them.
Definitely.
How do you look at the involvement from across the border in this incident?
Definitely, not only in this particular incident, which obviously is very grave in its magnitude, and but kind of publicity or negative propaganda it sparked in the international media. So the footprint of India definitely remains visible in all such incidences. If we just see how meticulously this entire episode was planned, and then how meticulously it was projected on international media. So it was a well orchestrated and well integrated operations which was conducted by the militants inside Pakistan, but definitely it had support of planning, it has material support, and it had the follow-up support of not only their masters across the border in Afghanistan supposedly, because that is where the major chunk of the militants of Khawarij or TTP resides, but of the Indian, because no non-state actor and no militant group would have such sophisticated training. It is a very well organized signature episode of an intelligence agency of the class of RAW that could have managed this incident.
Let me include General Raza in this also. General Raza, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
General Raza, even when we talk about coordination. Of course, this incident. I keep saying this, and I think this was reiterated by everyone, that there is, whether it's Balochistan or whether it's KP or whether it's Punjab, for all of Pakistan, it's how it affects Pakistan. It's us Pakistanis as a whole, and Pakistan that bleeds. In terms of our coordination, do you think that where in your opinion, can we better ourselves to ensure that we are not in any way vulnerable to any such kind of perpetration ever again?
Okay, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. I think to answer this question, we'll have to look at various levels. At the international level, it's a matter of great gratification for us that many big countries of the world, including the United States, China, UK, the EU, and other friendly countries have condemned, this terrorist act, and we now hope that the government of Pakistan, the Foreign Office, will work with them. They will share the dossiers prepared by us, and hopefully, this issue will be highlighted further at the United Nations Security Council, particularly the efforts between Pakistan and China would also probably lead to better coordination and cooperation to contain and to control and eventually to eliminate terrorism inside Pakistan. Secondly, there has been a lot of political discussions on the matter between the government and all other parties, which I think is a very positive sign. But these should now actually uh, give rise to a number of actions that the government could consider for its new policy to make sure that terrorism does not happen in Pakistan again, particularly of the magnitude of what happened there in Quetta. Now, I think that should include the kind of our relations with India and Afghanistan henceforth. This is for the Foreign Office to decide what kind of incentives and disincentives we need to give very clearly to the interim government of Afghanistan, and what should we do
General Sahab, you're talking about, what kind of incentives or what kind of, what we can say to, yes, what we can say to the Afghan government. We've again and again, made it clear to the Afghan government that we will not allow their soil to be used as a weapon of terrorism against Pakistan. It doesn't seem to be having the kind of effect that we would like. Do you think a change of policy is something that we should be thinking about on a government level?
Absolutely. I think we need to very seriously reappraise the current policy. And when you are talking of evaluation of policies, this means it should now be very clearly done by the executive, by the cabinet, and the major components of the government, including the armed forces, the intelligence agencies, and if need be, even the political religious parties themselves, the leaders of the parties themselves. And then there should be concrete decisions, about our policies, not only with Afghanistan, but also with India. For that, we need to have a relook at both our national action plan and the provincial action plan, particularly the latter when it comes, to our security audits, both in the province of Balochistan as related to this recent incident, and in KP, again, with respect to what happened in Banu and other areas. And we need to find out, for instance, in Balochistan, it was very clearly mentioned that in the area where this incident happened, in the Bolan area, there were no communications, and the mobile communication was not there. So I think the government of Balochistan, and if needed, the federal government should direct now, the cell phone companies to make sure that this communication is available. Again, about the government of Balochistan, I think they need to make sure that adequate security is provided for all movement, whether it is road movement or rail movement, particularly in the areas which are difficult, and whether it is done with the help of levies or police, or levies and police combined, including the railway police. And if it can't be done, and if there are difficulties in that, they must find solutions to them. And if it is needed that they need the help of the federation, it should ask for that. The provincial action plan, particularly improvements in the CTD departments, needs to be again looked at. And if they need any additional funding, budgeting, weapons, equipment, training, intelligence capacity, they need to be provided to both these provinces at priority. These are the kinds of executive actions which need to be undertaken by first the provincial government, and if need be, the federal government as well. And again, a very important component of the new policy would be the permissions or at least discussion on the options available to the government of Pakistan for cross-border operations to knock out the safe havens of these terrorists
Let's
in
talk more about
Afghanistan,
that.
whether
I will come back and talk more about that. Let me include IJAZ Sahab. IJAZ Sahab, one of the things that General Sahab mentioned is the ability as a nation for us to come together, unity, all political parties. We've also seen, at this time, a lot of things being said by the opposition. How do you look at this? This is certainly a time of unity. It's certainly a time of coming together for Pakistan.
Exactly. This particular incidents can be compared to APS incidents of Peshawar, and there is a need to develop, a unity, an integrated whole of the nation approach on the pattern and on the lines of what we did after APS incidents. And for such unity and cohesiveness at national level, we need to forego our egos and we need to forego our political affiliations, and it holds good for all parties.
Do you think we have that, it is high time that we reach that kind of political maturity where, of course, the national interest reigns supreme?
Unfortunately, I will be very candid in saying we do not see that. We, reflect, extreme polarization, which obviously gives that, strength to fault lines, which are likely to be there in a very diverse society like ours. So,
do you think there needs to be more, communication? There need to be more meetings.
We need to have
between
communication.
All political parties, certainly.
We need to have communication. We need to have commitments, and then obviously the
to honor them,
to honor them, and ensure compliance at federal level as well as at the provincial level. And then a follow up should be done for the capacity building of the law enforcement. Provincial level, the district level, and all those assistance which is beyond the means and affordability of the provinces, both particularly KP or Balochistan in that case. It should be funded by federation as a special measures, and those funds should be judicially very judiciously utilized for build capacity building in terms of training, re-equipment, which is essentially required at this stage. Remember, in such operations where you are facing an enemy within, which is supported by regional players, we have to be above our petty differences, because it is all about the national security, and we need to develop a robust intelligence network sharing mechanism, and then whenever there is any relevant intelligence input, we should have the wherewithal and capacity to conduct those operations.
General Sahab, as far as coming together is concerned, where do you think, we talk about maybe more APCs, we talk about more cooperation between the provinces. You particularly mentioned that we need that not only on a national level but on the provincial level also. Where do you see it? Where do you think is the starting point? Let's talk about that at this time to take everybody on board. And whether we talk about past policies, whether we the thing is to look forward at this time.
Well, I think all the political parties, I think, have one weave on the issue of terrorism, and they have all condemned this incident. Probably, there are factions which have misused this occasion, for their self-aggrandizement and for taking political advantage out of it. That is unfortunate, and it shouldn't have happened, and hopefully it will not happen in the future. And I think through dialogue and through consultations, probably I think they would have now realized that the people of Pakistan have condemned that kind of approach also. So hopefully, that will not happen again. But coming back to what we have been talking
And sir,
about what we can.
I want to focus on, you said that we, the Kulbhushan Yadav, for example, case, and the fact that we've had dossiers, we've presented them on international forums. When incidents like this continue to take place on this level for Pakistan, you mentioned that internationally, of course, we have seen, we would have to say a kind of universal condemnation of what's happened. Do you think that it can go forward, this kind of international support for Pakistan?
Yeah, I think,
Against against the role that India continues to play negatively within our territory?
well, I think it was probably the United Nations Secretary General was the first one to condemn this Jafar Express incident. And while the Indians may not really change their policies for known reasons, we need to actually look at what we can do, as I was saying, and as it is extremely important, now for the federal government to give very clear directions to all elements of national power, particularly the armed forces, to eliminate the safe havens of these terrorists wherever they may be, in the world. And I think there was a hint at that in the yesterday's conference of the DGSPR, and even probably of today, that they have to be hunted and they have to be actually given the punishment which they deserve. That is, what the people of Pakistan would want. But because this is a political decision, I'm sure, the government of Pakistan, after deliberations, would surely make a swift decision on this, so that, we can go forward on this and we can stop whatever is happening. To go after terrorists outside our borders in a defensive role, in a preemptive role, is permitted under the United Nations Security Council Charter to all countries of the world. And I think we are a peaceful country, but if we are pushed to doing that, we must not hesitate to do that. And unless that is done, I think other factors will not be as effective as we may want them to be. So we are talking of the defensive factor, which will continue, which must continue, but with a renewed vigor and with greater emphasis on capacity building and actually budgeting for them, because nothing happens, unless you budget for them. And let me also add to it that right now, after the NFC, the seventh NFC award, the provinces are much richer than the federation, because 57% of all the resources of Pakistan go to the provinces. The federation is not in a position to spend more on even on security issues for the provinces. I believe that the provinces will have to do it by themselves. For that, even if they have to levy additional provincial taxes, they must do that. And unless that is done, I think these two provinces in particular, they will remain vulnerable to terrorism. I would also like to add that the motivation of terrorists in KP and Balochistan are different and they need to be understood. While the motivation in KP, is religious fundamentalism, bigotry, extremism, and forcing their views of their version of Islam on others, it is different in Balochistan. There, the motivation is provincialism. The motivation is money, and they are being, they are now the agents of chaos by India.
We've also seen the Prime Minister talk about empowering, empowering Balochistan more, giving them in terms of resources, in terms of better, more funding, better projects. Let me come to that. Ijaz Sahab, I think that is something that the Prime Minister mentioned also.
Yes, that is very important, particularly in case of
because he's like, you know, like Jan Sahab is saying, the reasons behind this kind of terrorism between KP and Balochistan
dynamics
are
are
clearly
different,
very different.
definitely. In Balochistan, the narrative of socio-economic deprivation, you know, that has taken a very rich or energized, the spectrum, and it is being propagated by our enemies, obviously. So the fault line initially, such sentiment was within few thousand people and comprising, their influence would be in maybe 3 to 4 districts only. But now we see their demonstrations and on social media, their presence even in those areas which were never exposed to any such negative sentiment about federation. So while we must, all those genuine issues like any other area and any other people of the federation, we must redress those grievances, but at the same time we should, I think, work on a strategy to give a healing touch, so that this fault lines does not is not augmented any further, and we must have a policy of engagement with people. While I say engagement, that does not mean that we
more dialogue, or that's something that's not,
and we do not negotiate with people
terrorists
who do not accept the writ of the federation or who take up arms against federation or provincial government. Obviously they should be paid back in the same coins with more resources available on the part of federation and the provincial law enforcement, but the other people who are potentially being recruits for that propaganda, which can be utilized by our enemies for future utilization. So we must, I think, go back to universities, colleges, and engage the youth with some meaningful programs. And they are very talented youth in Balochistan and KP, of course. Particularly, I would say in Balochistan, we definitely need to engage all those who are possible to be engaged, and then we should isolate the hardcore militants or people who have taken up arms against the federation or the state, and deal with them with iron hand.
I think that's very important, the way that you've spoken about using and utilizing, our youth against this kind of attack. I'm going to go to Jan Sahab. Jan Sahab, do you think, that's certainly very important. Ijaz Sahab mentioned, going back to the youth and not letting them be used as a weapon of terrorism against their own country. We've seen that, unfortunately, the way that, there's infiltration in cases also. Do you think that that effort should be renewed, and do you think that, we can make inroads there? Because that was also envisaged, as you know, it's part of the original National Action Plan also.
Yes, I think that also needs to be done. All efforts to hijack the minds of the youth, whether it is in Balochistan or KP or elsewhere, uh, concerted efforts needs to be done. Unfortunately, we do not have, some kind of, an approved or official plans and funded plans. We do not have an infrastructure as yet for that. We need to expedite that. Having said that, I think the kinds of BLA terrorists or their affiliates, they have no connection with Pakistan, I believe, because they do not recognize the constitution of Pakistan. They are killing Balochs, so they do not deserve to call themselves, Baloch Liberation Army or so. And obviously, they have no connection with Islam, because they have attacked and murdered, mercilessly murdered Muslims who were fasting during the month of Ramzan. That is the kind of narrative I think which needs to be negated, it needs to be propagated, because it's based on facts and what is being said in their support. by Indian media or elsewhere, I think is fake, and it needs to die down its own death. At the same time, the issues of the so-called Naraz Baloch, or calling terrorists as nationalists, again, that needs to be very, very carefully handled to clearly separate all those, whose beliefs in the Constitution of Pakistan, the provincial government and the provincial assemblies, and all those who do not believe in them. A clear line should be drawn amongst them so that correct policies could be adopted and implemented. At the same time, we also need to be very clear that what is happening in Balochistan is directly aimed, at scuttling the Pak-China cooperation. The main target is that, and the people of Balochistan need to understand that all those who are targeting this friendship, this economic development, which could bring billions, not only to Pakistan or trillions, but also bring prosperity to the province of Balochistan. They cannot be the friends of Balochistan or Pakistan, and that the people of Pakistan and the government of Pakistan must treat them totally differently than all those who believe in our constitution and in our government.
Fair enough. Raza, overall, when we look at the, countering disinformation, of course, is important also. And I think General Saab also mentioned, we know what's being said across the border, complete lies. There is just, nothing factual. There is propaganda. There is, of course, and that has also been exposed naturally through, the evidence and through what actually happened, the reality, the truth that, of course, we saw happen. But as far as strengthening a media strategy is concerned and countering that kind of disinformation, that's also equally important, no?
In today's information era and the kind of fifth generation warfare which is imposed on us for past 2 decades, we need to utilize all Pakistan available sources, be it the mainstream media, be it the social media, and otherwise the socio-political discourse in the academia, think tanks. We need to devote time. We need to, cultivate that. I would say the theme in the minds of people that. What is the vision? What for Pakistan to bring them a sense of belonging? Once we have a sense of belonging in these people, then this narrative of being marginalized. You see, we have a problem in our rural Sindh also. We have socio-economic problems in southern Punjab also. But over there, this narrative doesn't work that much. But in case of Balochistan, with concerted effort, a lot of funding by our enemies, this is a sellable commodity. So we need to have a counter argument. We need to have a counter narrative, and that narrative should not be considered as of state or of Pakistan armed forces or a particular segment of the society. It should be the narrative of the nation, which should have a very strong signature of ownership of everybody across the length and breadth of Pakistan. So that will give a very clear message to our enemies, and that will bridge in those gaps, those communication gaps which are currently being exploited.
Right. Thank you so much for being with us. Unfortunately, we have limited time today. Thank you for joining us, ABM retired IJAZ Malik. Thank you for being with us, Lieutenant General retired Raza Khan. Thank you for joining us. I think what we said is that one important thread throughout this, which is narrative building. We need narrative building. We need across the board political unity. We need there to be cohesion between all institutions, and we know and see that we are looking at the kind of cohesion at this time that is perhaps unparalleled. But at the same time, that effort of strengthening our narrative, that effort of building a counter narrative that unites the nation is extremely important. Whether we can do that through media, whether we can do that through talks, whether we can do that through channelizing our youth, so that that resonates all over Pakistan. And it is extremely difficult and impossible for our own to be used against us, the way that we have seen across the board efforts to infiltrate the very fabric of our society. And we know that the way this counter-terrorism operation happened is the way that its success itself tells the story, the way that our soldiers fought valiantly, bravely, and the way that they made sure that this was a failure overall. That said, we continue to mourn the lives of those that were lost as a nation, as Pakistan. And we stand by our forces at this time, at a time when we all need to unite against this kind of terrorism. Thank you so much for joining us today on Perspective.